Guys, I'm about to show you how to lift your Jeep ZJ, XJ, and even TJ for under $10. Check this out. These are coil spring isolators. They're what sits right on top of your spring there to prevent any vibration or noise from the spring. I have quite a bit here. So this pile and this pile are front compressors, or sorry, not compressors, are front isolators, and 3 of them equals about a 2-inch puck lift. So I got 3 here and 3 here, and these go on top of the isolator that's already in there. On the rear, you also have isolators, and normally in the rear end, when you're putting a puck lift in, you take out, I guess you can't really see that, you take out your factory isolator right there and then throw the 2-inch puck on. And since 3 of these equal 2 inches, we can utilize the one in the back as one of them. And then I have 2 additional for the rear on both sides. We will have to do some modifications, which I'll show you once we get to the back. So, isolators normally at a junkyard. My junkyard just gives them to me for free. So I haven't put any money into this lift. I would probably predict that if there's more expensive junkyards or more anal junkyards out there, they'd probably charge you no more than $5 for a set of them. I mean, they're not really something that the junkyard's gonna make money on. So you're gonna get these for under 20 bucks easy. 20 bucks max, depending on your junkyard. But like I said, most junkyards will just give them to you for free. So let's go ahead and pull these tires off and get working on this. First thing you want to do, most important thing you're going to do, make sure you set up 2 jacks behind the front tires just for extra safety, and that way you don't have to hold the axle up with the jacks and you have room to move the axle up and down so we can get the springs in and out. And then just a couple things to get off after you get your wheel off. You have your tie rod end here, it's just a 19mm nut. You have your sway bar link, it's a 15mm nut on the top. It's gonna be easier to get it out from there. And then you have 2 13mm nut and bolts holding your shock in, and then a 13mm underneath your ABS bracket holding the spring in. And then you do have to take the ABS bracket off to get the spring out. So those are 2 10mm bolts on the back side. And if you wanna see more specifics, you can go to my very first video and it walks you through how to undo everything a lot slower than I'm gonna do it today, so that you can kind of follow along with that to get these spacers in. And smack it. Ooh, that's hot. That's some friction right there. Everything is detached. Now your next step, and again, if you want to see this more in detail, go to my very first video, how to build a budget Jeep. Drop your jacks all the way and your spring will get a lot of tension released off of it. Take your coil spring compressors, you can rent them from AutoZone, put one on either side of the spring and start compressing them until you can pull the spring out. Well, once you got your old spring off, what you're gonna wanna do next is you have this bump stop right here. It's a 15mm bolt, and there's gonna be a little rubber piece sticking out from it as well. Excuse me. Best way to get that out is to take some pliers, grab onto the rubber bump stop and push it that way, and it'll slowly just pop out. And then undo this, the 15mm socket, pull that off, and then slide your spring isolators onto there, and then just put it right back together. My rubber bump stop rotted out, so I just put the cup back on itself. And now, what you want to do, and the best way to do this, and you probably already figured this out when you took the springs off, is I like to set the bottom in where it needs to go. And then take your coil spring compressor. I bought mine from Harbor Freight. This is what it looks like. It's 30 bucks from Harbor Freight. You can rent it from AutoZone for 50, and you'll get your money back when you return it. And the best way, the most convenient way to do this that I've found, is do it upside down. Well, I got my spring on, not sure about you, but once you're at this point, go ahead and get your other side on, and then putting everything back together is just reverse or removal. I would recommend doing your sway bar link ends first. Pop those in on both sides, and then do your shock, and make sure you get this routed correctly around the shock before you put the shock in. And then after that, we're pretty close to done. Put your brakes back together, your brake rotors, and then we'll put it on its wheels and move on to the back. Front end is done. We're gonna do the exact same thing on the rear. We're just gonna take these coil spring isolators and we're gonna stack them. These ones are not designed to where they can just stack on top of each other. So we're gonna grind these lips off here on 4 of them to make them flush. And then again, 3 of these makes a 2-inch spacer. And on the rear, you normally take out the isolator to shove the spacer in. So we're gonna utilize the spacer on both sides as well. That one's gonna keep the lip and just slide onto the bottom of the other 2 so the spring can sit on it good. So let's get to grinding. And because rubber's gonna be flying around, I'm breaking out the weed whacker mask, okay? I don't care how goofy it looks. I'm protected. Ooh, yeah. Okay, well maybe I need to turn my hat backwards, but there we go. Ain't nothing getting this face. Okay, we like that. I'm gonna do that to the last 3 and we'll start pulling this rear end apart. Once you got the back end set up, tires off, make sure you got your jack stands ready to go underneath it for when you set it down. This axle only has 2 things you really gotta undo. Your sway bar end link, which is 2 15mm nuts, so get a wrench on the bottom, socket on the top, zip it off. And then you have your shock, which is a 15mm nut and a 19 or 18mm bolt. Zip those off, take off your spring clamp on both sides, and the axle's ready just to drop down, pop the spring out. Boom. Pull that out. There she is. All right, let's do the other side. Get this thing dropped. Once you get your other side done, go ahead and drop it down. And if you look here, you can literally just push the axle, pop the spring out. Now we need to get this coil spring compressor out of here, or coil spring isolator. I keep calling it a compressor. Easiest way to do that, grab a screwdriver and a hammer. Kind of pry it loose until it finally comes. And it's out. Now we can take our ground down ones, slide 1 up, slide 2 up, and slide your 3rd one on. Make sure you're seated all the way. Grab your spring. Recommend sticking it on the axle first. And then just push it down. Just like that. Shove her back in. And you got yourself a 2-inch lift. The other side's gonna be a little harder to push down because you already have a spring on this side, so we're most likely gonna need to use the coil spring compressor on that side. So I'll show you guys that here in 2 seconds. This later's on, and it might be best to come from the back side. Set your spring up. Just like that. Well, there it is, JD's and Lentelman. Pick your wheels, throw them on. You got yourself a lift for under 20 bucks. And again, I say that because I don't know if all junkyards just give you those coil spring isolators for free, but under 20 bucks for a 2-inch lift, really good deal. And it still rides good. It's not sketchy. It's the exact same thing as just ordering a 2-inch puck. And it turned out awesome. Now I know that the 90s XJs, late 80s XJs, and some of the earlier TJs have leaf springs in the rear and not coils. If you have leaf springs and you have an XJ or TJ, you can actually take S10 leaf springs, cut the eyelets off, and then mount those up to your XJ, and that'll get you a 3 to 4 inch lift, depending on how worn they are and what year XJ. I'm not 100% sure on the years, but any S10 honestly should work. So that's a trick for the rear leaf springs, if you have leaf springs. Other than that, thank you for watching. It was a fun little video to make. Enjoy your rig, and we'll see you next time.